Layaway, a castaway, and a giveaway. A layaway, a castaway, and a giveaway. I had a sermon all outlined, all prepared, ready to preach, but something kept covering my mind and coming in front of that message, and I simply feel I must speak on this subject. This is not what you'd call a Bible message, though it does have Bible truth. But I had some unusual things happen to me this week, and I met three very unique personalities, and they told me to tell you something, and I thought that I should. First person I met is the person that I call a layaway, and the second person a castaway, and the third person a giveaway. It's been a very busy week for me. I left here Monday and flew to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I was taken by a car to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, where I preached Monday night and Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday night. And then I caught a plane back here and spent Wednesday here and left after the service and was driven to O'Hare Field and caught a plane for Nashville, Tennessee, where I was taken by car to Murfreesboro, where I preached Thursday morning, Thursday night, and 3 times Friday at Murfreesboro for the 38th anniversary of the Sword of the Lord. And I've never had anything quite this unusual happen to me, or anything exactly like this, and I thought I ought to share it with you for today. 3 men came to me at different times in Murfreesboro. The first man was a layaway, the second a castaway, and the third a giveaway. 6 years ago, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, at the Bill Rice Ranch, I had been preaching the morning message. We went down to the dining hall there by the lake. I was sitting, for some reason or other, eating by myself. I don't know why, because usually I eat with Dr. Bill or somebody. But I was eating by myself. A fellow walked up to me and he said, Dr. Hyles, I'd like to meet you. And I said, I'm Jack Hyles. He called his name. He had a look of conviction on his face. He said, I'm not saved, but I want to be saved. And I said, if you want to be, you can be. And so I proceeded to tell him the wonderful story of Christ. I've told it across this country and around the world. And I told him the wonderful story of Jesus Christ. But he wouldn't receive it. He said, I ought to be saved, but he said, not now. Later. I said, look, friend, you don't know you'll have a later. You don't know but what this is the last chance you'll ever have to receive Jesus Christ. Great big tears rolled down his cheeks. The next year, I went back. I was teaching the soul winning course in the afternoon. I went down to the dining hall to have supper, and after I'd had some fellowship and a meal, a fellow walked up to me and said, do you remember me? I said, sure. Last year you were here. You weren't saved, but you wanted to be, and I recall how you cried and didn't get saved. Are you saved yet? He said, no, but I'd like to be. And I said, man, you better hurry. You don't know when the last chance you'll have will come. 4 years ago I was back. The same man came back to me. Looked like he had aged 20 years. He walked up to me and he began to weep and he said, Reverend Hyles? And I said, yes. He said, it's too late. I said, what's too late? He said, it's too late for me. I said, what do you mean? Who are you? Don't you remember me? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't. And he said, 2 years ago, I came to you telling you at the dining hall I wanted to be saved, but I wouldn't do it. And last year, I said the same thing, but I wouldn't do it. And he said, Reverend, and he began to cry. And he looked like he was 20 years older. He said, it's too late. It's too late. And I said, why? He said, I crossed the line since last year. I've never seen a more pathetic-looking figure in my life. You say, preacher, do you mean that happens? That people actually say no to Christ so often and so long until it's too late? That's exactly what the Bible teaches. My spirit will not always strive with man, says Genesis chapter 6 and verse 3. 3 times in Romans chapter 1, the Lord reminds us that God gave them up. I mean, He gave them up. And somehow time between the last summer and that summer, God had given up on this fellow. And this fellow said, I can't be saved. It's too late. I had preached last Friday morning, and a great crowd of people had lined up to get me to sign their Bible. You know, the fad of signing Bibles. Numbers of folks to shake my hand. When suddenly a fellow in white walked up to me. Looked like he was a male nurse, but looked down, his shoes were dirty, and obviously he had been doing manual labor. I found out later that he worked in the drywall business. And I said, and he wasn't dressed to come to church. He had on a white outfit and dirty shoes. And he said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "You're the fella." Yes, he said, "I'm the fella who waited too late." He looked like he's 70. He couldn't be over 35. I've never seen a man age like that man is aged. His eyes were squinty and wrinkled around like this. His brow was furrowed like this. And his lips always quiver and are sort of puckered like this as he talks. The man looks like a peach that's been left out in the sun too long off the tree. And he said, "I'm the fella." And he began to tremble. And he said, "I'm the fella that waited too late." He said, "I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell." I said, "Well, why do you say that?" He said, "I waited too late." He said, "When I said 4 years ago, I think it was, 4 years ago, in the dining hall of Bill Rice Ranch and said no to you," he said, "I didn't know it, but that's the last chance I had. I waited too late. I waited too late." And then he said to me, I think he said, "You're not on the radio here anymore, are you?" He said, "I want to hear you." He said, "I'll pay for the broadcast if you'll tell me how much it is a week. I want to hear you." And I said, "Do you feel like you ought to be saved?" He said, "I waited too late." Now, this man is no fool. This man is somebody. This man, if you had talked to him 5 or 6 years ago as I did, you would have known he was a man of intellect and a man of at least a normal or above average IQ. And he was really a man who was articulate and gracious and kind. No nut, this fella. No moron. No idiot. No screwball. This fellow's no fly-by-night. This is a real solid man. But he said, "Reverend, I went to it." And then he began to cry, and he threw himself on my shoulder last Friday morning. And he threw himself on my shoulder, and he said, "Don't you have any longer for me?" And I said, "Look, I've got to change. I've got to have a bite to eat. I've got to get back here in less than an hour and 10 minutes to teach a 2-hour lecture on soul winning. I just can't." He said, "Don't you have any more than 3 minutes for me?" He said, "You're the only man in the world that will listen to me at all." And he said, "I waited too late." And as I walked away, he said, "Hey, Reverend, could I just say one more thing?" And I went back and I said, "What is it?" And he began to cry, and he said, "Tell them not to wait. Tell them not to wait." Do you know, dear friends, this matter of crossing a line after you said no to Christ too long, did you know it's a reality? I've met person after person in my life who said, "No, I don't want to be saved now. I'll wait till tomorrow. I'll wait till I get older. I'll wait till I have more time. I'll wait till my family's reared." And yet they somehow or other cross a line and they don't want to be saved. And if they do, they can't. And I can hear this man saying, "I waited too late. I waited too late." And then he threw himself on my shoulders and said, "Tell them not to wait. Tell them not to wait." And so I come to you this morning, as I've come to so many people through these years, and I say, you may someday wait for the last time. And you may say, "Not today, but tomorrow." But tomorrow, God may have changed His mind about it. And the Holy Spirit of God may take His flight and rest upon another. Tell them not to wait. But something else happened to me, and it's so strange it would happen. Do you know that before I left Bill Rice Ranch on Friday, a fellow walked to me who was a castaway. He said, "Dr. Hyles, I wanted to meet you. I've heard about you. I've read your sermons. I've heard you on the radio. I've heard your tapes. I want to meet you." And I shook his hand, and he said, old man. And he said, "You remind me of," by the way, old man, "did you know they've lowered the pension for the Social Security to 60? Did you know in 14 years I'll be eligible for Social Security?" I wish they'd raise it to 90 so I'd feel like I was younger. Think about it. And by the way, in less than 14 years you will. You're like a father to me. But the old man came to me and he put his hand down and he said, "You know why I like you?" Well, I could think of many reasons why you ought to like me. And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "'Cause you remind me of me." Old man. You remind me of me. And then he began to cry, and he said, Dr. Hyles, and he used the word, I'm a castaway. I said, what do you mean? And here's what he said. He said, Dr. Hyles, I was once I preached like you do. Why, he said, there was a day in my church when we had the blessings of God and people came down the aisle. Now, he said, not as many as you have, not near as many as you have, but he said, every Sunday people came to Christ. And he said, I used to knock on doors and I used to win folks to Christ and I used to be a soul winner. But he said, I got tired. I got tired. And I told the Lord, I'm going to rest for a year. I didn't intend not to come back. So I got concerned about the deeper life, so-called, type ministry. And I decided to just not have the pressure on and not have the pressure on all the time and not be pushing my people and not push myself. And he said, Brother Hyles, he said, I asked God for a rest and I decided I was too tired. And he said, I can't get it back. I can't get it back. And the strangest thing he said to me, less than 3 hours after the other fellow had said, tell them not to wait. This old man began to sob. I mean, his body shook. And he said, Dr. Hyles, tell them not to stop. Tell them not to stop. Well, I was stunned. I just had a thought. Say, tell them not to wait. He said, tell them not to stop. He said, when you get tired, keep on going. When you get weary, don't quit. He said, when you stop serving God, you may never get back there where you were before. Now, I'm talking to somebody this morning who wants to give up your Sunday school class for a year. You're going to lose something you may never get back. I'm talking to someone this morning who wants to quit your bus ministry. You're tired and you're weary. You may lose something you'll never get back. Why don't you better still just turn to Isaiah 40:31 and read the Bible and find out that they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Listen, there is a definite truth that physical stamina and strength can be gotten without a week or 2 weeks in the Rockies. How? Wait upon the Lord. They that wait upon... People oftentimes come to me and they say, Brother Hyles, I wish I were like you. And I say, what? A boundless bundle of energy. Never get tired. You ought to see me get up some mornings. I say to my leg, please move. It says, I've been moving too much lately. I said, please move. I woke up Thursday morning, funny enough, because I think I talked about it Wednesday night. But I woke up Thursday morning, and I don't know where. I'll tell you what, I sat up in bed, and I thought, let's see, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Dallas, where is it? I looked out and I said, it's raining. It must be Hammond. It took me 10 minutes to figure out where I was. I told you one time, it's been now a year ago, I guess, I stayed in 4 different motels in 4 different states on 4 consecutive nights. And I recall on the 3rd night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I got up to go to the bathroom, and it was, of course, dark. And so I... And see, it was on the 4th night. It was on the 4th night. And so I got thinking, now, where am I? And it was dark, and so I didn't want to turn the... Because when I open my eyes, I can't go back to sleep, so I always keep my eyes shut. And and it didn't make a difference if I opened it because it was dark. And so I thought, now, I know where I am. And I'm in a certain place, but that's where I was the night before. And I recall that the way to get to the restroom was to go about 10 steps this way and turn right. The door was to the right. Except I wasn't at that place. And so the restroom was to the left in that place. So I walked about 10 steps and then I turned right. And I started to go through the restroom, but they'd moved the door since the night before. And I fell over a little table-like thing, hit my shin, fell over it, hit my nose right on the floor. Turned around and sat up and said, where am I? Of course, all of us get tired. Everybody gets weary sometimes. But don't quit because you get tired. If all the tired people quit, nobody would work. Don't quit. And the old man said to me, he said, Brother Hyles, he said, I've seen the day when I preached like you do, and I had the zeal you have, and I was after souls like